I'm Sophia Klopas with the Klopas Stratton team. We are real estate brokers at Jamison Sotheby's International Realty, and I'm here to talk about the housing process once you've decided to get a divorce or are thinking about getting a divorce. And my counterpart is
Tom Field, Bierman LLP. I am an equity partner at Bierman. We handle all types of family law matters, including prenups, postnups, parentage cases, and mostly divorce. I work with clients locally here in Chicagoland area as well as nationally. And we are here, like Sophia said, to talk about the influence of divorce on real estate.
All right, hey guys, back with another episode of More Than a Mortgage, where we help people build wealth through real estate, and we also talk about real life issues that we're all going through and facing in our worlds. And today, today we have two guests on our show. Before we get there, I'm Mike Black, and this is
Tom Merritt.
And I have two of my favorite people on the face of this earth. One who's helped me out a lot, Mr. Tom Field. And then we also have Sophia Klopas with us, and it's an honor to have these two on here. And our topic that we're going to discuss today is really centered around real estate and divorces, and what happens. Tom can share some stats with us, just what happens in that process. Like what can you expect? How does it impact your search? How does it impact your the process when you're going through the divorce? So I want to start off with Tom. Give us a little, introduce yourself.
Introduce myself.
Yeah.
Tom Field. I am an equity partner at Bierman LLP. We are about 62 attorneys strong. Makes us the largest matrimonial firm in not just Chicago area, but also in the country. It's our only practice area, so
you're good at divorces.
I live and breathe it, and have been doing it for over 20 years now, so it's my thing.
Yeah, and I know Tom's worked with friends of mine and does a great job. So one thing I will say about Tom when you go through that process is that you should keep the peace, because it's not very peaceful.
We try to keep
You try to.
We try. That's always a goal.
And then Sophia, tell us a little bit about you.
I am Sophia Klopas, and I have been selling real estate in Chicago for 25 years, and I work with my partner, who is my brother, Jason Stratton, who's been on here with you before, and we currently are working at Jamison Sotheby's. So
perfect.
Nice. Get the experts from all over, for all different sides of it, if you will. So.
Yeah. And Jason, he definitely knows how to take that freedom of speech to the next level.
He does. It's a gift. It's a gift.
Not afraid.
He got all that.
So,
and I love that I didn't know Sophia was going to be here, and that Jason's a buddy of mine.
Yeah,
it all works out.
It's a connection with it.
It's a small little world.
We'll keep it in the family.
It is a small little world
Totally.
for sure. But so Tom, I want to start with you. Just talk to us a little bit about that process when you're going through. Like, how does a lot of our listeners are in the mortgage industry, or they're home buyers, homeowners, and realtors as well. Like, how does when someone comes to you with hey, we're thinking about getting a divorce, like, how does real estate come into play with it? Like, walk us through that process.
Sure. So, every case that walks in the door, we have no idea what we're necessarily getting until we start digging in, right? Our initial meetings with our clients vary. Some of them are really well versed in what their assets and liabilities look like. Some of them haven't the foggiest, because that just hasn't been their role in the marriage. So we dig in, we get into what we call the discovery process, and start gathering information. Most cases, especially in the higher net worth world that I play in, there's some form of real estate, right?
Or multiple pieces.
Or multiple.
Yeah.
And so the cases that I get involved with, are anywhere from, we got a house, to we have multiple homes, to we've got a whole real estate investment portfolio. So really it's, at the onset, just an assessment of what kind of real estate are we dealing with in this case before we start evaluating what are we doing with the real estate. That becomes sort of the next step. That next step can be talking to the client and saying, I don't know what your house is worth quite yet, but how do you feel about it? Are you emotionally tied to it? Is it a good financial position to take for you to retain the property? Can you afford to retain the property? Do you want to retain the property? How old are your kids? Does it make sense to try to keep it for another year or two because you got a kid who's a junior in high school and you want to, so there's a lot that goes into, there's a lot of questions and follow-up questions that I want to know the answers to so I can best advocate for my clients. And decide, to either of them. If nobody wants the house,
it makes it a little easier. Yeah,
I can call Sophia or her brother and
that makes
say,
it easier for Sophia.
I might have a client for you.
Well, we get a lot of calls though from attorneys wanting an evaluation to decide actually how much is it worth, right? When it's involved in that process, because people don't know what their houses are worth.
And personally, I try to avoid bothering my friends for that purpose.
That's where your handy appraisers come into the picture.
Reason being, yes, as much as I like to steer all my clients to a private mediated process rather than have them go into the litigation process, I feel like it's our job to prepare always. And I always think the best way to prepare is to get a real appraisal. Not that I don't trust realtors, it's because I don't want to have to do it twice.
Yeah.
And if we have to go to court, I'm not calling Sophia or her brother or other friends of mine in that world because they wouldn't, no offense to realtors, they wouldn't get qualified as an expert for purposes of evaluation, even though
Sophia,
they are probably...
That might have saved you an extra half hour of your week.
Sure, I agree that we're not actually the ones setting the price.
The judge.
I didn't say you weren't the expert.
In that room.
I didn't say you weren't the experts. I just said they wouldn't get qualified as an expert in court, which is something that we just have to navigate in my litigation world. Where, for better or worse, licensed appraisers are the ones who have credibility or the most credibility in a courtroom. So that's sort of a progression.
Yeah. So you get to that stage where you finally kind of get what everyone feels like, and where everyone's feelings are. You got kids involved. You don't have kids involved. One wants to sell. How do you deal with that? Like, one wants to sell, one doesn't. That seems like a...
Well, that actually is the easiest scenario to deal with.
Okay.
If one wants to sell, the other one doesn't, assuming the one that doesn't wants to retain it, great. We're getting an appraisal, and that's the value of the property. If the person that wants to keep it wants it, that's what they're paying for it. It goes on their side of the balance sheet at that value.
Wow.
So that's the easiest.
I thought that would have been the hardest.
No, that's the easiest. Hard is they both want it. Again, go get the appraisal.
Yeah.
And are they going to get in a bidding contest? Is somebody going to overpay just because they want it that badly? If you end up in court and both parties want it, it's also an easy result because the judge is just going to say, too bad, I'm forcing you to sell it now because you guys can't agree on who's going to keep it. Occasionally we'll get an agreement, give somebody a right of first refusal in case it sells lower than anticipated. But those are generally the typical scenarios.
Yeah, and I think the calls I get the most from like you or attorneys out there is just looking at one party where one person's wants to stay, the other wants to leave. Do they qualify for it, right? And
that's tough.
How do we kind of manage that piece of it? Is like, if I say, hey, he doesn't qualify for it or she doesn't qualify for it, then that's a little more complicated of a situation, right?
That gets more complicated. Then it's, do we have to wait until the case is over? Qualify somebody 6 months later after they've been getting support pursuant to a judgment.
It's probably twofold too, right? So it's not just being able to afford the current payment. It's going to be being able to afford the future payment, because a lot of times you're either going to need to take equity out because that's where the majority of assets are, or remove them from the mortgage too. That's another side of it.
Yeah, and it's very much problematic these days because so many people are locked into these 2% and 3% mortgages, and
those are the hardest ones I'm seeing right now, where they're getting like a 6 or 7.
They know it's going to go up to 6.25, whatever it is, and it's that on top of if it's the non-wage earning spouse or the lower wage earning spouse who wants to stay in the house. It's really hard for them to qualify. We're seeing if it's the wage earner, it's a little bit easier because I wouldn't say more often than not. I would say at least a fair percentage of the time they're able to work on an assumption. But
they pretty much ultimately are going to need to refinance and increase their payment, and that's not going to count anything. It's all about the asset and the value of the asset.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody can do an assumption, they may not have to. They're good, assuming there are sufficient assets elsewhere to, on the balance sheet.
Yeah.
So Sophia, on your side of it, how do you deal with? I mean,
generally when they come to me, there's already been a
settlement
decision, right? They know what's happening, and I'm selling it, right? Or we do get calls a lot, like I'm thinking we probably are getting a divorce. What can I get for X, Y, or Z? Like they'll know what they're getting out of, or something out of their house, right? So what, if I have 3 kids, can I afford a 4-bedroom house? And if so, where can that be? So that starts a bit of the process on our end and helping people figure out where can they actually go if they're not staying in their marital home. So you're saying
go, and that's what I wanted to clarify. It's not so much staying in the home here, but what can they afford?
Right? What can I afford? Because then they have to go
elsewhere.
Well, and they also have to say that this is what I'm going to need in order to
school districts,
live,
costs.
Right? This is what I'm going to need in order to be able to, house the children, right? Really, that's what it's always about.
Tom, that was a good point, those school districts.
Yeah.
So that's huge. Whether it's the suburbs or the city, it's typically an issue, right? If the kids are in private school, okay, fine, not necessarily an issue. You don't have to be in a specific school district. But if the kids are in a public school, it's a big deal, right? And that puts pressure on the lawyers sometimes to get creative with how we draft too, because, is it so long as one parent lives in this school district, the kids are going to stay there?
Because you don't want to uproot them. And
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But oftentimes, if the more moneyed spouse can stay, great. But if the other parent is going to have the majority of the parenting time and be living out of district,
how does that work?
How does it work?
Gosh, I think we're telling you
a lot of
guys,
issues here.
We're telling everyone this. We're telling everyone this so that you don't get divorced.
This is the most uplifting conversation ever, right?
Right.
Nobody ever wants to talk to me, but then it's kind of fun.
No, but I've seen some of your social media and some of your posts that you've done, Tom. I mean, you've written articles on why you should stay together, like, because the process, having gone through it myself, is like, it's not fun. Like,
no.
There's nothing fun about it. And then flip it to the whole real estate, where now I've gone through Tom, and I'm completely exhausted, and I feel like I'm ready to pull my eyeballs out, and then I've got to sit down with Sophia and have another hard conversation around, depending on the market. I mean, this market,
generally they're downsizing, and it's not necessarily always just about size, but it's a downgrade generally.
Yeah.
Which nobody wants.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's hard.
So that's even a hard concept to take out too. So it's just
it's emotional on all levels.
Exactly.
When preparing for it, so I know we've run into, and again, talking divorce and things of that nature, prenuptial agreements and things of that nature obviously is ideal and perfect, but nobody gets divorced, right? So nobody's ever doing that. So questions I think that I have come across or run into, at least on the lending side, relate to, I know specifically Illinois is like a homestead state, dower rights. So where does that line, so if someone owns a property prior to marriage, but live in the property as a married couple, or they purchase it together, but only one of the individuals is on the loan, maybe on the title, maybe not. How does that work, and how does it come to fruition 5, 10, 15 years later if in the event of something that nothing was planned?
Sure. So we're an equitable distribution state from a property division perspective. So anything that's accumulated after the date of the marriage is presumed to be marital property.
Okay.
Anything owned prior to the marriage is presumed to be non-marital property.
Okay.
There's some exceptions to the rule. You know, it can be non-marital if you inherit it, or it's gifted to you after the date of the marriage. But there's no common law marriage in Illinois. So just because you live with somebody in a house that you owned prior to the marriage doesn't mean that they accumulate or acquire any rights of ownership in that property at any time in the future. To your point, if you buy it after the marriage, but only one person's on title, titling doesn't really matter.
Okay.
So if it was purchased after the date of the marriage, again, presumed to be marital property, you can overcome that burden or that expectation or assumption if you can demonstrate that the funds used to purchase it emanated from a non-marital source. But that's the burden on the person making that claim then.
Sure.
Yeah.
So it gets a little complicated, especially...
So you mean like a gift? Like
Well,
what else would be something that was gained outside of?
If you and I got married and I had a trust fund from, years earlier from my grandparents, and I took money out of that trust fund, bought the house, and put it in my name only, even though we're married, you don't have any interest in that property.
What if she
So
paid
long
part
as
of the
I
mortgage?
can...
What if there's a mortgage, though?
Then
That's
the
where it gets
marital
good.
estate may have a contribution argument. So if I were the lawyer making the contribution argument, I might say the marital estate has a right of reimbursement now for any pay down of
Principal
the
or
debt.
equity.
So any creation of principal pay down, that creates more equity, the marital estate should have a right to that, but not the original equity.
Not the original.
What about the appreciation?
So the appreciation would belong to the owner.
Okay.
Oh,
So the marital estate might not get any benefit out of the appreciation.
Interesting.
that doesn't seem very fair.
Yeah. He just gave everyone.
Just saying.
He gave you. He
I'm
gave,
just saying. That
Sure.
doesn't seem fair.
I won't quibble, but
Yeah.
the argument, I suppose, against it would be the hypothetical, which is, all right, they don't own the property, they're renting. You're not accumulating an asset when you're renting, right?
I'll put the
You're
twist.
you're paying to live somewhere. So the argument, on the flip side is, well, you'd be paying to live somewhere, whether you were renting or owning, you just happen to own it.
Now, if they were put on the title or they were put on the mortgage, does that change anything?
Yes. If they're put on the debt only, shame
I
on
don't think
them.
you can, but-
That would be silly, although I've seen it before.
Really?
who talked someone into doing that?
Someone with
Someone
bad
that didn't
legal
have
advice,
advice.
bad attorney.
Somebody had a few cocktails before they.
Bad real estate
But if they're on title, they're presumed to have an ownership interest.
Okay.
So, the ways to finesse that, are with a prenuptial or a postnuptial agreement.
Yeah.
So sometimes if I have a client who we do a prenuptial agreement for that comes to me and they're already established, they've already got, some meaningful wealth, we'll build in a provision that says the new spouse will acquire automatically a percentage interest each year of the marriage until they reach
50-50
an equitable
or- yeah.
right place. I'm fond of that provision, to be honest, regardless of which side I'm on, because I think at the end of the day, marriage is a partnership.
Yep.
And a home, as Sophia could probably speak to as well as any of us or better, you know, it's a joint venture, right? I
Absolutely.
mean, especially when you're in a marriage, that's not always, but a lot of times it's people's biggest asset. And, you know, to not feel like you have an interest in the place you're living in, I think is tough for some people.
Then you feel like you're a renter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To your point earlier. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I always tell my clients, I'm like, doesn't matter if you're on the mortgage, you want to be on title.
Yeah.
If you have to choose one.
Well, so
Yeah.
there's an interesting. So what if they're on the title but not on the mortgage? So now they have ownership. Do they have any responsibility with regards to that debt?
So I guess the answer is yes, but.
Okay.
And the but would be if the debt was taken prior to the marriage.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
And that's good for us to know too, because we have a lot of clients that they do that, right? They'll just
and
one
then they'll
person will
put
go
the
on the
spouse on title.
Yeah.
yeah, they'll both go on
person on
purchase
mortgage
contract and
happens a lot.
title. One person on the more for various reasons, and maybe it's their credit, maybe it's like
Sure.
they don't bring anything. Like they're actually
Not
hurting
helping the situation.
They're hurting the situation.
Yep.
So we advise people that. So
Detriment
that's
to
it's good
the
to know. I
transaction.
thought you were going to say the other
No,
side
I
of it,
mean,
and I'm like,
so
I
for
gotta
me,
change
that
my
becomes
ways.
an estate planning piece.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't do estate planning, but I know enough to be dangerous in that regard. And if there is a writing, right? So you can create an estate planning document that says so-and-so was on or wasn't on the title or the mortgage intentionally, and it was an estate planning decision.
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't affect ownership
Yeah. Yeah.
or liability.
I mean, how many people do that? I mean,
Not a lot.
Yeah.
Some people that are very careful do, though.
Yeah,
So we do
okay.
see it.
Yeah. Wow. Sophia,
interesting.
give us the craziest divorce situation you've ever been a part of.
Squatters,
Come on.
husband and wife squatters, neither of them will leave. And they like,
the cohabitation, but not.
yeah, they can't agree. So, you know, it's like try to get
So
a
nothing
showing
happens.
and the house is a disaster.
Well, that
Yeah.
helps a lot, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well,
It's biting off your nose. And cut,
So is
spite
that
your
both
face.
of them wanted to stay? Is that was the mindset?
I think the one wanted to stay, the other one did not want them to stay.
Yeah.
And so they said, okay, I'm going to make this difficult. And so neither of them were budging. It was a fight. It was ugly, right? So
And you were in the middle of it trying to
Navigate.
and I
massage
had
it
to
out.
text both at the same time, but then I'd get a side text from each one, and I'm like, okay, let's reel it back in. Everybody's got to stay on the same page. So, like, we actually had to go to the attorneys for showings because neither of them, they wouldn't leave. You know how uncomfortable that is when
Yeah.
the seller's at a showing, the buyers
Is that a special designation that you have, like a class that you take, trying to moderate? and
insanity?
Yeah.
No, there's no class for insanity. There could possibly be something I'm not aware of. I've never heard
I feel
of
like
it.
there
but-
are some realtors that claim to have some divorce credential, which I always
Yeah,
laugh
I don't know
at.
what
'cause
that
I'm
is.
just
I was
like,
thinking more like
sorts of credentials,
psychiatrist
but
or
yeah.
I'm like,
psychology.
I don't know why anybody
Well, there's people
would.
claim they're involved in sports. Like I work with sports people, or I work with Hollywood people. I work
Yeah.
with divorces.
It's my
I
niche.
don't. Yeah, I don't. I've never seen a course offered as
I don't know
such,
why anybody
but
would want
to specialize in
market
it.
themselves
Well,
to
it's-
divorcing couples. It's
it's
the worst.
horrible.
It's
Yeah.
the worst. I mean,
It is.
I'm laughing at that story just because
You know that it
I've got
happens a
so many
lot.
of them. I mean, I have one case right now. We probably spent easily $20,000 of attorney time arguing about listing a property. And the complications of the letter agreement that we had to enter into just to get the property listed, and how my client got to choose the first realtor.
Oh, gosh.
But it's only a 6-month engagement, and if that realtor doesn't sell it, the wife gets to pick
The
any
second.
realtor she wants, except for one specific realtor that my client said he doesn't want to be associated with. And now the house is on the market, and the wife is criticizing his realtor over email
course, yes.
constantly. She
Insulting,
wants
a lot
him
of
to
insulting.
rewrite the listing agreement. She doesn't like the music that he put to the listing that's
The video.
on. Yeah, apparently,
Oh, yeah.
apparently he used some rap music, and she's like, it doesn't go with the aesthetic of our home.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Oh, geez.
You know, it is, and you did say, I mean, not for like big wealth families, but for most people, their home is their largest asset,
Yeah.
right?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
we all know people get crazy when it comes to their money. So when you're taking someone's home away from them, and that's how a lot of times the person who doesn't want to sell feels,
Yeah.
right? They want to stay in the house. It's so emotional, and Jason and I always joke about the fact that we like also should have like a degree in like family therapy.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Your designation. When
Yeah,
you're doing
that.
it's not, but I mean, you do. I mean, you have to sometimes be very careful about what you say, and because I've had them say, "Well, Sophia said," and I'm like, "Oh, I didn't
me
mean
into
it
this.
as that way. Like I was just trying to make you feel better about it." But
Yeah.
you know, and we do get a lot of people who do like when we're talking about each other, like back and forth between the husband and the wife, or the two parties divorcing, coming up with a price together, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then once you set the expectation and then you get the contract and it's the numbers we discussed, then one party won't sign,
Yeah.
right? So we've done this entire exercise.
So how do you deal with that? I mean, you've got, let's just say, a list price, and heaven forbid, okay, it comes in
well, now
over.
they're all going over.
That's
But,
what I mean,
I
so-
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't. It really doesn't really matter about the price. The point was is they knew they were never going to sign
Yeah.
the contract, so it was like an exercise.
So what do you do? Go to
They
the
both have
courts?
to sign. Yeah, I mean, the one person went to the attorney, and then by the time it was settled, that person had already closed on another house, so the
Yeah.
deal was dead at that point. It didn't happen quickly.
So, Tom, how important is it to you to have like a Sophia in your life when it comes to like making recommendations? Because, you know, again, it's like you see all the people branding themselves as the divorce agent or whatever the case may be, but like just knowing someone's personality to like kind of put the bow around the end of the process. And
So this is a tough one because as much or as badly as I want to send a client and their spouse to Sophia or fill in the blank, my process with my clients is so emotional, even in the best case scenarios, that 9 out of 10 times I will say, why don't you call so-and-so? Why don't you use this realtor? Or here are 2 realtors, go pick one. And the spouse on the other side immediately rejects any name that I put in front of them.
that makes sense.
And so the other side will say, well, what about these names? And then my client will reject them. And
It's
so
tough.
it's really hard. I mean, really hard.
Yeah.
Like I can think of one case in the last 2 years where I actually suggested 2 realtors. There was a property, it was a high-end property in the Gold Coast. And so I thought of 2 people that were in my network who I know sell primarily in the Gold Coast. And lo and behold, miracle of miracles, I had the husband in that case, the wife agreed to interview both of them. And they actually picked one of them.
Picked one. Wow.
I was shocked.
Wow.
But it's hard. I mean,
Yeah.
Jason will tell you, I mean, I've known Jason, Sophia's brother, now for, I don't know, the better part of a decade or more. And I think I've been able to push 2 clients his way, like through work.
Yeah.
It's just, it's so
It's usually the other
hard.
way.
Yeah.
I have a friend who's a divorce attorney that like all clients like, because they'll call, we're getting a divorce, we need to sell the house, and we need an attorney.
Yeah.
Do you have an attorney recommendation? So it's, I've given out versus
Yeah.
coming in, and
That
I
makes
get
sense.
it. I don't even like really making referrals because if anything ever goes wrong,
Yeah.
it's like,
It's so hard.
you said so. You
Yeah.
told
Right.
me. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's nice to refer. Like I will always give 3 of everything,
Yeah.
right? Because then there's always like people think you're going to get a kickback because there's always that like component. Like, what are you getting out of this?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Jason and I always play good cop, bad cop.
Yeah.
Guess who's good cop? Guess who's bad cop?
I know you're a good cop.
I'm a good cop. Play nice. But yeah, I always feel like, I don't know how you work in your firm, but we always, for things like that, I'll be like, Jason, I need you to come with me because it might be a personality thing, right? So it's always nice to have somebody we're pretty opposite in our mannerisms, so it's nice to have, a good cop, bad cop.
I mean, you're not smacking
Smacking
everybody.
you, and when you laugh.
Every time I go out with Jason,
he
I
hits you.
get a bruise
Yeah.
the next morning.
Yeah, he does. He's good like that. But he's very passionate.
Yes.
And, he doesn't hold back at all. And,
Not afraid.
it's a beautiful quality to have because I think people have come to expect that from him. The directness.
The directness and it comes with time.
Yes.
Because I think no matter what you do, whether it's in your world, in real estate, or in my world, there's a level of confidence that you have to grow into.
Yeah.
So when I talk to my clients, there's this really raw level of honesty that I go with. And, it's, you guys are paying me a lot of money for my advice. You don't want to take it, okay, but kind of caveat emptor, right?
Yeah.
I'm coming with 20 plus years of experience, my background in finance, having an MBA, making me different in my world, like, that's okay, but I don't need you to be my client either if you don't want to take my advice, because at some level, and you may see that too, because I know realtors, my mom's been a realtor for ages, you get abused.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you allow it.
If you
right?
allow it.
You allow it. It's the same thing with experience. You get to a certain point where you're like, you know what? I actually don't want to work with this person.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? And
well,
you just
I think
are like, sometimes Jason will say, the money's just not worth it. So if I'm like, yeah, I know.
Right.
Well, and the more experience you have, the quicker you can identify it. And so
quick.
you identify it, and it's like, we're
Sometimes
done.
it's
Like,
from the
this is-
telephone call.
100%.
Like, I'm not even going there.
The questions that are asked and the way that they
We're leaving
respond.
town tomorrow.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, one
not my
word
neighborhood.
you guys use a lot in your business, underwriting.
Yeah.
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 We have to underwrite our clients
Yeah.
when they come in, and I think maybe you struggle with this a little bit too. It's hard on the uptake because you don't have documentation 95% of the time to really back up whatever they're telling you, and sometimes they know next to nothing too. So that's a struggle in our world, really trying to assess a case.
Sure.
So someone comes to you. What before they even come to you? What are like 2 or 3 things that like are just big time? Just don't do it when it comes to the house. Like before the divorce even starts to begin, or just 3 tips that you. I know one of them is probably move money. Like, don't be moving money around. Like when you know you're going to get a divorce, like, and you know it's going in that direction.
I mean, moving money is one. I mean, when it comes specifically to the house, though, there's a few red flag things. So I'll say one is if they have plans to make some significant improvements, or there's some that are in process. I always push back a little bit on those and say, pump the brakes.
Yeah.
Especially if they haven't started them, stop.
So if you're
Full stop.
maybe
don't do
maybe
it.
postpone the kitchen remodel if you guys are fighting a lot.
Yeah, don't do
Well,
it.
that will cause a divorce.
Right?
Yeah, in and of
Any
itself.
sort of remodeling is tense.
Very likely. If they're mid remodel, it's sort of like I got to try to assess. All right, well, is there literally a bathroom that's only got a toilet and no sink? Like, all right, put it back
Finish that,
together,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Make
you
it
need that to
easy.
sell. You need that to sell.
But you have to factor it in. Do they have any cash flow issues? And one thing I'll say, and this is not necessarily a don't. This is sort of a do. And I'm very careful about strategically telling clients this, but if there's no case on file, and I know I have the payor spouse, and they've got plenty of savings, I may, depends on the circumstance, and depends on how much debt there is on the property, but I may suggest they pay off the mortgage.
Really?
Strategically, the big reason is, when it comes to setting spousal support, there's guidelines in Illinois. The guidelines phase out when there's more than $500,000 of gross household income. So 95% of my clients are phased out. Meaning there's more than that amount of income in the household.
Get that part, but meaning the guidelines with respect to what spousal support would be,
How to calculate it.
how to calculate it.
So once you get beyond the guidelines, if you go far enough beyond them, meaning the income gets closer to $1 million or more, you generally are looking at a lifestyle assessment to determine what the lifestyle is, how to maintain that lifestyle if possible.
Interesting.
So I look at it from the perspective of what's the biggest monthly expense.
The house.
Generally speaking, it's the mortgage. If there is no mortgage payment,
Lifestyle.
all of a sudden the lifestyle dropped by $3,000 to $12,000, depending on how big a mortgage they have, right?
That's
So if they can afford it and it's not going to cash flow constrain them, it's a little bit of a strategic edge to do something like that.
It's interesting. Going the opposite way, that was a great point, great suggestion. So I have heard, don't leave.
Don't leave the house.
So is that something, is that a myth? Is that for real? Do you suggest, your clients, and Sophia, you brought it up earlier, you've got two people that are squatters, right? They don't want to leave. Is that?
And then they stop paying the mortgage though too,
Well, yes.
right? And everybody's credit gets
I
messed
thought
up.
that one was going to come out too.
Yeah.
Don't
That
stop
happens
paying the
all the
mortgage.
time.
Yeah.
Or a lot.
Yeah.
The don't leave recommendation is 90+% of the time because there's minor children, not because of a financial issue with the property. So I tell my clients, unless there's a temporary parenting agreement or preferably a full-blown parental allocation judgment that's been entered, my preference is that they don't leave.
Okay.
Because it's leverage in our negotiation, right? If their spouse really wants them out of the house, well, if they're still there, it's a little bit of leverage to get a better parenting arrangement than otherwise. If they're already out, the other spouse is somewhat carefree.
Yeah.
And
So it's a negotiating. It's not like
It's not a
he or
desertion
she
thing. I
left.
always heard it was like a deserting
Yes,
thing.
that's
Like you
the-
vacated
that's
and
a fallacy.
deserted. Okay,
That's a fallacy.
Okay.
Deserting or abandoning a piece of real estate is not really a thing.
Abandoning the family.
How about-
But yeah.
How about, Tom, we're getting a divorce I want to file today. Sophia, I want you to go buy me a place.
Oh, yeah, there you go. So now is that marital property?
Yeah.
So that's
marital
what do
property.
not do. Do not go out and buy a place when you start
Well, listen,
I know it
there's
happens,
a
right?
few things. So, one, maybe it constrains cash flow, and that's something the other side might not be too happy about. But if you do it and you can go close or lock in your past escrow, okay.
Yeah. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, you'll figure it out. Sometimes if we're into the case and somebody wants to go buy it, but it's agreed that that's going to be their property post-decree, we'll have the other spouse sign a homestead waiver, acknowledging that the other spouse is going to be taking that property, and maybe do a side letter or even a court order that says it's an advance against their share of the ultimate marital estate. Depends how badly they want it. Sometimes from a cash flow perspective, I may use that as leverage if the other side wants to go buy a place and say, you know what, that's fine, but it's not a necessary expense right now. And so any money you spend buying, financing, furnishing, remodeling, that's an advance against your share of the estate, and the marital estate's not going to be responsible for those payments.
So for our end, it gets a little harder too, because we'll have they're right in the middle of the divorce and they want to buy something, but we can't delineate what
What is what?
the debts, what the expenses, what all that's how that's
Who's
all going to be
responsible?
divided out. So we can do it if they have a marital settlement agreement in place.
Right. But their financial disclosure, if there's a case on file, is always, there's a red flag.
There's
right?
a red flag, but as long as both sides agree to everything, if you go through mediation, you come to terms of agreement, we can get around it that way.
Yeah.
As long as everyone signs off on it. Another thing we run into a lot is the judge awards, I'm just going to say the wife, the property, but they got a 2.25%, like you said, and husband stays on the loan. I get a lot of calls on that. Like, I have to be on the loan. I'm not coming off. I would never, after all that they went through, I would never do that to my wife and make her take a 7%, my ex-wife.
So
Like,
I got a great example, though, right now that covers both of those. So, middle of the case, parties are living in like a $2.5 million house in the suburbs. My guy moves out, starts renting a place down the street, and did a short-term rental, and he said to me, "This is stupid. Why am I paying like $12,000, $14,000 a month renting this place? I should just buy a similar house that she's got." And listen, he's an investment banker. He makes like $3.5, $4 million a year. I'm like, okay, you can afford that. Well, the problem was, from a cash flow perspective, he more recently started making that kind of money. So the other side's freaking out, and they're saying,
how do you afford
well,
that?
how's he going to make the payments on the old house and the new house and pay our lawyer fees and pay your lawyer fees? And
There goes the cash.
it was all
There goes the cash flow.
the cash flow was gone, and then we had to look forward. We had to be forward looking and be like, well, his bonus comes in this month, and so we need to see how we can stretch things to then. And meanwhile, the wife goes and spends like $25,000 on furniture, and she's like, well, that was part of our plan when we were refurnishing the house. And I'm like, that plan went out the window when you filed for divorce. And so things change, right? There's this back and forth, and it gets it gets nuanced real quick.
Sure.
Wow. It's wild. Well, and what I was going to say is, if that happens, just so you know, you probably already know this, and for you to know too, but if the husband is on the mortgage in that scenario I just gave, and the judge awards the husband, the wife, the property, as long as the quitclaim's done, that debt should not count against the husband.
No.
Even if he's on mortgage?
As long as the judge awarded.
You have to have the divorce
The
decree.
quitclaim.
Yes.
Oh.
Right.
Yes.
So
And it can't be on title. You have to do it on the quitclaim.
Yes.
The problem is most people won't do the quitclaim until they're off the mortgage.
refi, right?
But I
They'll
think-
deliver the quitclaim deed to closing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But in that same example, there's a couple little kids. It's a shorter-term marriage. The wife is not going to get spousal support for a real long time, and there's no way she could afford that house. So they want my client to stay on the mortgage for
100%.
a long time.
Yeah.
And sure, he could, but from where I sit, it's like, all right, what does he get for doing that?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he's got to get something for
What's the incentive?
staying
The
on
trade-off.
that debt. Arguably, his kids get to stay in the same school district. They stay within a mile of his house, and yada yada. But there's that give and take.
It's the
Wow.
ugly business of divorce.
Period.
Look,
Ugly
Don't have to go
business.
further.
this is real life stuff, though. This is the kind of stuff that people go through, and unfortunately, marriage isn't always everlasting like it's supposed to be. But it's good for people to, I think, hear what you guys are saying today, because it's not. There's a lot more that goes into it that we're just breaking up,
Yeah.
right? So
Especially when there's children involved.
yeah, with children
That
involved,
just
and
is the worst.
yeah. So Tom, if you had one good piece of advice for anybody that's coming down and getting ready to get married, what's like the best piece of advice you would give them going into like the new life together?
Call me.
I was like, prenup.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say prenup.
Yeah, that's why
Call
you
you
gotta
for the
call you.
prenup.
So prenups. It's funny. Somebody asked me about prenups the other day. When I started practicing, I was doing maybe one a year. Now I would argue I do probably at least one a month.
Okay.
They're becoming way more in vogue. People are
But still not a lot.
No, but people are a lot more comfortable doing them.
Do you think they're looking at marriage as more of a business arrangement? Is that, what do you think the reason
In
is?
part, I think.
Or is there more money?
So
Or is it second marriages?
So there's a few things at play. One, people are waiting longer to get married.
So they're more established.
Fewer people are getting married. And to your point, the ones that are getting married a lot of times are more established.
Yeah.
And so they have something and they want to protect it.
Yeah.
Or it's a second marriage
Yeah.
or a third marriage,
Yeah.
which again, socially acceptable. So you can avoid a lot of these pitfalls. I know we've talked about all these nightmarish situations today, right? You can avoid a lot of them with a prenuptial agreement.
Yeah.
And I would definitely say this too about prenuptial agreements. People are often penny wise and dollar foolish.
Yeah.
It's worth paying a good lawyer to do a really thorough, high quality prenuptial agreement.
What's the plan?
Not 1-800-lawyer.com.
Or prenup.com or whatever. No, don't do it. Don't use ChatGPT. Don't use Claude. Pay a good lawyer to do it.
Yeah.
And I will say this too. I don't make much money on prenups.
Yeah.
It's a very finite amount of work and it's transactional, right? Like my whole business. So if you do a good job, you may never see that person again. But I think it's a great investment. So for the people that are doing it, don't cheap out. Spend the money because you save yourself potentially tens, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars.
I
by
think
having
people are
a
afraid
good
to bring it up. Like they're just afraid that it's going to make.
Going into something with the thought of failing.
Yeah, exactly.
No one wants to admit or.
But they don't realize that it's a plan that spells out like, if this happens, then that happens, and like,
Sure.
you know.
But one of the biggest pitfalls of marriages is finances.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that could have been overcome had the parties actually sat down prior to the marriage and had a real dialogue about what do finances look like?
Yeah.
What are we each bringing to the table? Do we have student loans? Do we have credit card debts? How are we going to budget our money on a monthly basis? What's our plan for saving?
This sounds like conversations that set you up for success.
Yeah, right.
Listen,
hard
I'm all for marriages working,
Yeah.
right? And that's one thing. When somebody comes to me, one of my first questions is always, have you exhausted all of your potential remedies for the marriage? Because I don't want to encourage somebody to get divorced.
Yeah.
Unless there's physical abuse or habitual drug or alcoholism like going on, like I'm not encouraging it.
Yeah.
It's not a fun process. The results are not as glamorous as some people think. So, you know.
Well, this is a great episode.
If you do get a divorce and you need to sell, give me a call.
That's right.
Look, we brought two of the best on here at their jobs and what they do, and I can tell you that just from experience, because I work with these guys all the time, and I just know, like, both your personalities work very well in situations where people are going through like a tough time in life, and they work great when they're going through great times in life too. But you know, one thing I will say is that I've seen divorce attorneys that are pit bulls and they make it worse, and it's really for the billing cycle, and they're making a lot of money off of you, and you're already going through a tough time. And I've seen people going through the divorce process buying homes and how complicated that can be, especially when it's not fully over just yet. So I can tell you that Tom and Sophia do a great job of managing feelings, emotions, expectations, and I think that's half the battle, is just giving people like the clear picture of what they're getting into and what it's going to look like, right?
Yeah, it's a hard situation.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
I really appreciate you coming on. And Tom, where can everyone find you out on social media? Do you even know?
So BiermanLaw.com, BERMANNLAW.com. You can find me there. ttfield@BiermanLaw.com, or my direct line 312-621-1216.
Sophia, where can people find you at?
Okay, well, we are on Instagram, and it's Klopas Stratton Real Estate is our Instagram handle. It's also our LinkedIn handle. It's all of them. Our website is klopasstratton.com. My cell is 312-927-0334.
Definitely follow.
Text is the
Definitely
best.
follow Klopas Stratton on Instagram, because those guys have it going on with social media and like
We
just
have
things.
a slight addiction. It's a problem.
But you have a lot of good nuggets and information to come out. So, guys, you can follow us on More Than a Mortgage. We're on Instagram, Spotify, YouTube. This episode will be posted on YouTube. This is our fireside chat, but if you haven't noticed, we're all melting right now. And I wanted to turn the fireplace on tonight, but they insisted that
hot.
ain't happening. So, but we appreciate you tuning into this and joining us for another really good fireside chat episode. And Tom, Sophia, thank you both so
Thank you
much
for
for
having
coming
us.
on.
Thanks for
Yeah,
having
it was
us.
great.
This was great.
I'm Mike Black,
I'm Tom Merritt.
and we are More Than a Mortgage.